So first off, why don't you sort of set the scene for us? I mean, it's such an interesting story. Talk a little bit about your character, who is a real person, Dr. Pyle, about what he's setting out to do on this journey.
Right. So it starts off with, well, in a nutshell, he is in the beginning process of grieving for his wife who just died of cancer, but she kind of, plays this little, I don't want to say tricks him, but her final gift, parting gift to him is making him go on this 124-mile hike through this very dangerous part of the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, which he's been threatening to do forever, and he always finds an excuse not to do it. And then she signs him up for a Guggenheim Fellowship, which he ends up winning, and so he has to do it. And it's basically his journey while he's kind of grieving in the beginning, and his journey through it. He's very he's in over his head. He's quite naive about what it would entail, but also has some hubris to him because in the beginning he's like, I can do this, is whatever. And through the process of going on this quite arduous journey, in which he nearly dies several times. This is all based on real stuff. This is a real person who had this, real experiences. It's an aggregate of a bunch of his writings, but he comes out a different person, so it's that. And in the meantime, you get to really enjoy 90 minutes of some of the most beautiful scenery I've ever seen. I'm not that familiar with that part of the country, but the woods of the Pacific Northwest and Mount Adams and Mount Hood and all that, and it's just stunning, beautiful.
Yeah, and so you are starring with Debra Messing, who plays your wife, and she's battling. So there's a metaphorical part about her battle with disease, and talk a little bit about that. One, working with Debra, and two, how that story sort of weaves into this sort of epic adventure that he's going on.
Well, so Debra plays Tia, his wife, and they were, that was the love of his life. And there's she was basically, even though she's dying, she's still taking care of him, and he's just not good at being alone. He would, have his shoes on the wrong feet, and would just be eating out of tin cans. He's just not that kind of guy. He's a scientist. He was a premier biologist, Harvard educated, and the nation's premier lepidopterist before he got into writing. And he was science minded, and she's much more effusive and outgoing than he was. And when we joined the story in the beginning, he's getting ready to go on the beginning, and a lot of this is in flashback, and she's dying. They both know it. And Debra every actor has their own process, and she has a really intense process, and she goes off and she did a lot of studying for it. She talked to Robert, she talked to relatives of Tia's. She's wearing Tia's clothing and jewelry, her real clothing that she had. The art on the walls in their bedroom, those are all the real Tia's artwork. And she would go off for, she'd be in hair and makeup, and we had an amazing hair and makeup woman, Heather Capaldi, and she did a great job. And then you'd listen to her music and then come out and do it. And I don't think I could have gotten to where I needed to get to without her doing really the heavy lifting in that scene as the person who's dying. And I'm just reacting to a person dying.
And did you get to talk to Dr. Pyle as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I knew I was going to do it and everything was ready to go, I went to Oregon and Washington. I think he's in Washington, but to meet with him and just hang out with him, and then go butterfly hunting with him and go into the woods. And I went out on these long hikes with survivalists and things like that. And I was specific that I wasn't looking to do an impression. I didn't have any interest in that. And I don't think I could pull it off. First of all, he's a big dude. He's big. He's a big guy. And we consciously took, some liberties with the storytelling. The real Robert Pyle was not nearly as inept as I make him in the beginning. He did, all those things did happen, but he was able to deal with it, as a person who kind of knew what to do, had a better idea of what to do. Like, in the beginning, I've got like the guidebook and I'm picking something. I'm like, what is this? This is an Oregon grape. Ooh, that's bitter. And the real Robert Pyle would know, that's an Oregon grape. I'm not going to eat it. That's bitter, but that's boring. So, and with Robert's blessing, I mean, we all kind of worked on this together. And we have to entertain, even though we have the story to tell. I met with him a number of times prior to shooting, then a couple times while we were shooting. He didn't want to come to the house where Tia dies, and he for understandable reasons didn't want to be there when we were shooting that. And but he was there in the scene where I run into the Native American family. He came out a couple times to different locations, and he's extremely helpful and the biggest cheerleader. He's a really remarkable, good, decent person. He reminds you of what the world would be a better place if people, and I'm including myself in this, were just better and nicer and decent and approach things from a perspective of love and an appreciation of nature and eyes open and a kind of more open consciousness that a lot of people don't have.
Did you get to sort of share some of his passions, like the butterflies and Bigfoot?
I mean, I don't share those personally. I enjoyed spending my time with him, and I enjoyed him showing me just little things about butterfly hunting and his enthusiasm, as if I was his grandkid, when I was catching them and I finally figured out how to catch them, because they're tricky. Those guys are tricky. They're not easy to catch. But I don't share his, being enraptured by butterflies. I certainly appreciate them now more, now that I know more about them. That's, yeah.
Did you, I was interested, were you attracted to that? I mean, this obviously has some comic notes to it, but it's a interesting, serious film. Did you like doing things that kind of shift gears a little bit like this, that has sort of multi facets to it, that's not just comedy or not just drama?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when I first got the script, I mean, the story was really compelling immediately. Just like the log line of, okay, this guy's grieving the death of his wife, and he goes on this arduous journey, and he, discovers things about himself. He nearly dies several times, and he comes out a better man. That's immediately, as an actor, a pretty nice, juicy role. Also knowing that it's based on a real guy and a true story. And then, the script, Tom, the writer-director, Tom Putnam, wrote a really good script. And so I was like, yeah, once I met with him and we knew we were we were on the same page, because you don't want to go as either a director or an actor. You don't want to go into the woods. And I mean, into the woods. We didn't have amenities. There's no hotels, no trailers, nothing like that. And if you're going to do that for 5 weeks with somebody, you better, jibe with them, and they have to be decent people, and, you're on the same page. So yeah, it was all part of the attraction for me, and I don't get offered this kind of role that often.